Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, David. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm having a nice day. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to join you again on our Facebook broadcast today. Today, we're going to be talking about how intimacy starts by feeling good about yourself. My name is David Cope, and I'm a founder of a New Life Center. And with my partner Peggy, and I got involved in relationships because I got divorced in the year 2000. I have 4 children, and it was very devastating to me. And I wanted to find a way to have a loving and intimate relationship with another woman. So I've been working over the last 15 years in how to build a healthy relationship with myself and with my partner, Peggy. And what I found the key to having that successful long-term relationship, it really starts with a relationship with myself. So at a New Life Center in our relationship program, we really focus on how to build a relationship with yourself so you don't feel lost and alone in your marriage, and how you can connect with yourself and bring that into your marriage to feel healthy and good on a long-term basis. Can you share a little bit about you, Karen?
I can. I'm Karen Seitz, and I'm the lead teacher for our relationship course at a New Life Center. And I've been working on myself in my own marriage for the length of time that I've been learning and teaching this work to others. And I've seen my marriage go from headed straight to a divorce to being a thriving relationship where I'm really happy and my husband is happy, and we just keep working through our challenges and issues. And I have a whole new perspective on what a relationship is thanks to the program that we have. And it's my favorite thing in the world to teach these concepts to others and to be able to give other women a different perspective to be able to have the relationship that they always wanted.
Can you share the 3 foundational concepts before we get started today that
I
we have
can.
in a New Life Center in
Yes,
our
the
relationship course?
the framework for our relationship course in our Facebook group, we focus on 3 different key concepts. And the first one is that you are responsible for your happiness, that happiness is an inside job. Nobody can do it for you. So you have to learn to do that for yourself. And when you can, then you get to bring that into your marriage. And it's such a rewarding experience. And the second key concept is that you are the only one that you can change. We get so lost and so caught up in thinking that our husbands need to change or that they can change our experience for us. And what we have found in our own work that we do on ourselves and in our research and working with others is that you really are the only person that you can change. And when you focus on that, incredible things happen. The third key concept for our program and for our group is that authentic intimacy is actually about having a relationship with yourself and feeling good about who you are. And when I feel good about who I am, then I get to bring that into my marriage. And that's where intimacy really begins with another. It's that connection I have to myself.
Thanks, Karen. And that's a perfect segue into what we're going to be working on today in the broadcast. Is we're going to be talking about celebrating wins in our relationship. Can you talk a little bit about that and what we'd like to do in our Facebook group, Karen?
Yes, I think that a huge shift for me that it's actually been kind of recent because I've been doing so much work on myself these past few years that I'm starting to really focus on my wins and where I'm doing well and what's going right in my relationship and what's going right in my life. And when I focus on that, I begin to feel really good about myself. And it gives me the courage, it gives me the confidence, that motivation to continue going, because a relationship, a marriage is always hard work. And that's not going anywhere. It's a journey through life together. And so I need to focus on what's going well and where I'm growing and how far I've come so that I can keep going and keep feeling good about myself. And we thought that would be a really nice place to start to focus in the Facebook group, because the more you focus on what's going well and what's working, the more you feel like you have options and choices, and you don't feel trapped and like there's no way out. When all I focus on is the negative and what's not working and what's going wrong, I just bury myself in that, and I feel so trapped, like I don't have any choices and there are no options out of it. So that shift in our mindset allows us to get that motivation and confidence to keep going, and then we see hope. I think that focusing on wins and celebrations is such a great way to instill hope and realize, okay, this is working, I can do this. And that's what we want to set up today.
That's great. Thank you, Karen. It does.
Sure.
Yeah, celebrating wins is part of the process. Knowing that I have an end goal and I'm not quite there yet, and rather than thinking of all the things that I'm not doing right or that I have left to do, is constantly focusing on the things that I'm doing well. And when I make a mistake and I fall back into my old patterns of behavior, rather than beating myself up and going down that hole, it's like, oh, I'm terrible, I'm no good, I'll never get this. I can take a moment and celebrate a win. And what did I learn by going back into my old patterns, and why does that feel uncomfortable, and why I don't want to go there anymore? So sometimes, we're all humans and we make mistakes and trying to do better. So not going in and beating ourselves up is really important to stay in a good place and stay focused about, as you said, having hope and possibilities that things will work out. One of the ways that we at a New Life Center, we help focus on reinforcing the good parts of us, so that we can have a much more positive perspective about ourselves and feel good about ourselves, is the story about the good wolf and bad wolf. And I thought I'd read that. So excuse me as I read this story. There's a Cherokee story about two wolves, and it serves as an excellent parable. It goes something like this. An old Cherokee chief is teaching his grandson about life. He says, "A fight is going on inside of me," he said to the little boy. "It's a terrible fight, and it's between two wolves. One is evil. He is angry and envy and sorrow. He has arrogance and guilt and resentment. His false pride, superiority, and ego." He continued, "The other is good. He is joy and peace and love and humility and kindness and generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. And the same fight is going on inside of you and inside every other person too." The grandson thought for about a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" And the old Cherokee chief simply replied, "The one you feed." It gives me chills every time I read that, because it gives a good reminder, like, whoa.
Yeah, I'm all choked up over here.
Oh,
listening to it.
And why is that? What does that mean for you, and how have you learned to feed the good wolf and catch you when you feed the bad wolf?
I think it's really touching to hear, because I've been working so hard to feed my good wolf.
Yeah.
And I can feel that part of me inside of me winning now.
Yeah.
And that's talk about wins. That's such a win, because my bad wolf was really strong, and I was really good at beating myself up and constantly finding the ways that I was wrong or not doing well. And so hearing that story again just helps me feel really proud of myself, for how hard I've worked for that good wolf to be the alpha wolf now.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. It's up and down. Sometimes, the bad wolf wins out, but it's so nice to be able to have a perspective and recognize that is happening in all of us. And we have to learn how to feed that good wolf. It doesn't come naturally.
Well, thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to do is have you share, you had an anniversary weekend, and you went away with your husband, Adam. And I thought, we said, what a great opportunity to celebrate your wins on your anniversary weekend with your husband, and are you open to sharing that?
I am. It was a wonderful weekend and full of wins.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to share about it.
Okay, good. So we decided before there were 5 wins that Karen would share, and it's a good way to identify your wins is to think of more than one. And if you say, okay, I'm going to find 5 wins in something or 3 wins, because it forces you to go a little bit deeper and think about things that you might not have realized that you did really well. So, Karen, what was the first win that you had on your anniversary weekend with your husband? Well, by the way, where did you go? And can you give us a little background?
Sure. So our home base here with the New Life Center is in Denver, Colorado. And my husband and I have a friend who they were very generous and kind to allow us to go spend some time on their land up in the northwestern part of Colorado in the mountains called Red Feather Lakes. And it was so peaceful and so beautiful. And my husband and I have both been working really hard in our marriage. We're both working really hard in our own independent lives that are separate from each other. And so it was so nice to get away and celebrate that and actually feel like we had something to celebrate in life and with ourselves and in our marriage. So that was where we went.
Rather than pretending. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Every year before celebrating our anniversary was a should, something we thought we were supposed to do, and pretending that things were great and wonderful. And this year it didn't have to pretend at all. And it was something I wanted to do, not something I felt like I had to do.
Wonderful. So what was your first win?
My first win on the trip was having this amazing experience of really accepting myself for where I was at and also accepting my husband for where he was at. The first day that we got there, we arrived on Friday. We were both just in different places. My husband was very excited and had tons of energy, and I was feeling a little quieter and a little more low key, which is actually flipped for us. Usually I'm the more outgoing, very excited person. And it was kind of like, oh, wow. And it made sense because my husband landed his dream job last week. And so he had lots to celebrate. And I wanted to be supportive of that. And in the past, I would have either tried to change where I was at and try to be like him, which then I would be resentful and in this place of blame and being a victim, or I would have made him wrong for where he was at and expected him to meet me where I was at. So it was this lovely experience to be able to be in the space I was in and allow him to be where he was at and be excited for him in that. It was a huge shift for me.
Thank you. And how about win number 2?
Win number 2 was with my husband being in that place of being excited and so proud of himself and celebrating where he was at. I got to see him for who he really is and actually love that about him and appreciate who he was instead of wanting him to be someone different.
So that you've always wanted your husband to be somebody different.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. And so to have that experience where I could really see him and be like, wow, that's my husband. And to let him in, he was so complimentary of me all weekend and very intimate and like looking at me and like caring, like, how much are you loving what you're doing at work, and asking me these really sweet, intimate questions and being able to let that in and feel so lucky to be with the person I'm with and knowing that that was happening not because of something my husband was doing differently. It was the changes that I've made in myself and taking my walls down and actually being able to let that in because I never could before. So he wouldn't say things like that or be that intimate because I had pushed him out so much. So him showing up that way was a reflection of me and who I'm becoming in my marriage.
Thank you, Karen. Oh, there's three more.
I know.
Win number three.
Number three was that I had fun and it was effortless. So old me, it's like what's the best way to put it? It's like it's a job to have fun. Like, okay, now like we have to have fun. So I become really rigid in it. Like if we don't have fun, this is just going to be the worst week ever. So I got to make sure we have fun. And this time it was just a natural expression of me, that just being myself and accepting Adam for who he is and just allowing the weekend to be exactly what it was, allowed me to settle into myself and have fun naturally. It was so easy, and it's not been easy for me in the past, and then that makes it no fun for my husband either.
That's one of the things that we work on in our relationship program, is to teach women how to have fun again and realize that it's not something that's frivolous, but it's actually very important to have intimacy, is to have the kind of the silly funness that we used to have when we were younger. So thank you. And how about number four? Number four.
This kind of ties into the last one, that I had no expectations. I was just open to the weekend and how it was going to go. Any bump in the road or anything that maybe came up for me that was uncomfortable, or and not expecting my husband to be a certain way or for there to be some over the top romantic experience.
Because it was your anniversary.
And usually there's so much pressure around that. Like there's got to be this certain thing. It's got to look a certain way. And none of that was there. I wasn't trying to link it to past experiences we've had or try to recreate anything. Or we went away in June and I had a lovely time then, and I wasn't trying to recreate that experience. I was able to just let it be fresh and new, and that was so comforting, and it was just so nice to be calm in that and not have expectations.
Great. And win number five?
Win number five, this one, it was really great to see because it's a huge shift for me. But a lot of times there's this expectation when we're celebrating something like an anniversary to have sex and to be intimate in that way. And the kind of the space that I was in, and also the space my husband was in on Friday, I was able to communicate that that's not where I was at. And he was so open to it. He was like, you know what? I'm in the same boat, and let's just not put pressure on ourselves around that. Let's just have a fun weekend. And we were able to be intimate with each other in that way on Sunday when we got home, and we talked about that and communicated about it, so that I wasn't thinking about it the whole time. Like, are we going to have sex? Am I supposed to have sex? And that would have eaten away the whole weekend. And that's happened before many times. That actually happened on our honeymoon. So that was such a win. And for us both to be accepting of each other and where we were at with that was amazing. That's a huge shift in my marriage. Huge.
And I imagine it was nice for your husband, Adam, so he wasn't worrying, well, I wonder if I'm going to get lucky. It's my anniversary weekend. And what am I going to have to do to make sure she's ready? And that takes all the pressure off. And when you can actually be grown-up adults and communicate how you're feeling and have sex be something that you're sharing mutually together, rather than using it. Often what happens, we use it as a punishment or not allowing it to be natural and expressive. Thank you.
Yeah, so nice.
So can you share and kind of wrap up your wins, and why is it so important to celebrate your wins? You know, as we said, feed the good wolf. And why is that so important?
Taking the time to look back over this weekend, and for me, seeing my wins is really seeing how much I've changed and how much I've grown. And when I do that, doing this and even sharing it with all of you and articulating it for myself, it helps me to feel really good about who I am, because I can see who I'm becoming and who I've always been, It's just been covered up by the ways that I haven't felt good about myself. And so when I'm able to do that work to let go of how I feel bad about myself and then start stepping into my life anew and seeing my changes, when I look at my wins, that's where I feed my good wolf and start to feel good about who I am, which is what authentic intimacy is really about. When I feel good about myself, then my walls come down and I'm able to share who I am first off with myself and then with my husband. And that's where the intimacy happens. But in order for that to happen, I have to feel good about myself. So looking at my wins and where I'm doing well and what's going right is a really wonderful way to start feeling good about who I am.
Thank you, Karen. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And to support your comment, in the journey of having a healthy relationship with yourself and with your partner, it's always important to feed the good wolf, to spend the time reinforcing. In a new life center, we talk about neural pathways in the brain and how we get in marriages and we bring old patterns and behaviors back from past relationships, and we become unaware of these patterns because they create old neural pathways in our brains, and we keep going over them again and again like a path well worn, and it's really hard for us to realize that we're in our old patterns and to have any awareness that it's my patterns that I'm having. So by using the good wolf bad wolf example, the old patterns we have, and when we continue to reinforce them in our behaviors, we're feeding the bad wolf, and we keep making the bad wolf stronger. So when we begin to know that we all have a good wolf, I know that when we've talked about it, some people say, gee, I didn't even know I had a good wolf. I'm so used to beating myself up and making myself feel so wrong and bad about myself. I wasn't even sure if I had a good wolf, but it's in all of us. It's that natural part of us that knows who we are. And we start feeding the good wolf and catching ourselves in our old patterns. What happens is those old patterns and pathways begin to weaken, and we strengthen the new neural pathways, the good wolf, feeding the good wolf. And slowly what happens is we begin to be having self-awareness and making different choices, because when we're always feeding the bad wolf and in the old patterns and neural pathways, we don't even really have a choice because we're not even aware that things are happening to us. And when we slowly find our wins and support ourselves and feed the good wolf, over time the good wolf gets stronger and the bad wolf begins to be weakened, and those neural pathways that are healthy and supportive and allows us to be true to ourselves and have a relationship with ourselves get reinforced over and over again, and eventually the choices become much clearer, and we want to make healthy choices in our marriage and in life, and the old patterns of behavior no longer feel good, and it becomes much easier to make those conscious choices to feed the good wolf. And when we feed the good wolf, we feel good about ourselves. When we feed the bad wolf, we feel bad about ourselves. So if we understand the simple way of how to feel good about ourselves, meaning building intimacy and relationship with ourselves, is if we continually catch ourselves and feed the good wolf, we'll feel good about ourselves. And when we feed the bad wolf and we say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I'm only human. That's my pattern, and I have done for many years. Next time, I'm going to try to make a different choice." And then we can actually feel good about ourselves and not beat ourselves up, and reinforcing the new neural pathways and making the good wolf stronger and stronger over time, and ultimately we end up feeling good about ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, David, that when we've been feeding our bad wolf and it's the one that's winning inside of us, we don't have the self-awareness to get out of that.
Yeah.
So we have to we have to dive into those unhealthy neural pathways and dissect them and as I've been saying, do surgery on them to remove that. And that's when I can start to feed the good wolf, because it doesn't happen naturally. And if I try to feed the good wolf without really addressing and working on my bad wolf, I'm just going to cover that up and all those problems are still going to exist. So I have to do the work to get into that stuff in order to start to open those healthy neural pathways and really, really, truly feed my good wolf.
Thank you, Karen. Would you like to wrap up in anything in closing for today?
Sure. Just reinforcing how important it is to focus on what's going right and to focus on where you're winning in life and celebrate those things so you can start to feel good about yourself. And that's what we're talking about today, because when I feel good about myself, that's where intimacy begins and where I can really begin to show up as who I am and share that in my marriage and my relationship. But in order to do that, I have to look at how I feel bad about myself and how I'm unhappy. And I have to have someone walk beside me to do that, because our mind is very tricky and doesn't let us go there naturally. So if you're ready to dive into that and these videos or the content we're sharing is speaking to you and you're committed to yourself and you're ready to do the work, please private message me and we'll set up a call and have a conversation. We'll take a deep dive into your marriage so you get tons of clarity. And if we're a good fit, we can talk about the program. And if not, I'll let you know that too. Either way, these calls are incredibly valuable and you will learn so much. So I'm ready to talk to you if you're ready to take that leap with me.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen, so much.
Yeah.
It's always a joy sharing with you this work and program. It's how bright and soft you look, and sharing from your heart is wonderful to share, and I appreciate you doing all your work and supporting yourself and your life. And so thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you have a good day, and bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.